Cambridge Radio is powered by volunteers who care about sharing the voices, stories and sounds of our city. But rising costs from rent to equipment and music licences mean we need your help. By this September, we need to raise enough money to secure our future in 2027. If Cambridge Radio has ever made you smile, kept you company, or helped you feel part of this city, please donate today. Visit cambridge.radio/support us.
Flavour.
Cambridge Radio.
I'm going to read you the menu. It's fantastic.
So we get better flavour because of the fen soil.
I've drunk more beer since I came here and bought my 2 barrels than I've ever done in my life before, I think.
I shouldn't have said almonds, they don't make it from almonds.
So you've got this big sticky mess when you start off.
Pizza Box Pints.
My wife's cakes are excelling at hot cakes. Brilliant, thank you.
The time is right for this sort of thing.
Food is everything.
Cambridge is right for this sort of thing.
What's it like? Delicious.
Good afternoon and welcome to Flavour for our fortnightly look at the food and drink scene in and around Cambridge. I am Matt Bentman, live in our Gwydir Street studio here with Alan Alder. Our colleague Sue Bailey can't be with us today, but she should be back next time.
And on today's programme, we have ideas for some of the fantastic summer produce that just looks so enticing at the moment.
And with the recent closure of Rocker's Steakhouse, we hear from co-owner George Bhangoo about some of the challenges facing independent food businesses. We also have our regular food features too. Free food in Cambridge, local food and drink news, social media updates, and at the end of the programme, our jobs roundup.
But first, tea has been in the news recently, and more specifically whether milk should go into the cup first or second. More of that later after hearing about what makes for a good cup of tea. Hot Numbers has a reputation for selling very good coffee, which is roasted at the roastery in Shepreth, but what about the tea? How do they ensure that it is also of good quality? I asked owner and coffee and tea enthusiast Simon Fraser all about it as we sat outside the roastery overlooking the adjacent fields on Wednesday morning. Simon, Hot Numbers is particularly well known for its coffee, which I must say is excellent. But you're big on tea as well.
We are big on tea, and I love tea, actually. So we took over Candula tea. So we always had really good coffee, and we wanted to match the quality of that with our tea. Now, a couple of ladies, Gail and her business partner at the time, had a fantastic tea business, and we were serving all their tea, and then they came to sell it at the end. So we ended up buying the business off them, and it's a Sri Lankan tea company. And in lockdown, we weren't able to they weren't able to supply the volumes that we needed anymore from Sri Lanka, so we needed to find another source, and we went back to Sri Lanka. But my wife is actually Sri Lanka, so we went out there and actually found a really great company out there to supply us tea. So we did a lot of research while we were out there, and we're really excited to find a fantastic company, so Lumbini Tea Company, that we work closely with, and they're fantastic. It's family-owned business, and we're really proud to be working with them. And I wanted to fully engage myself in the story behind the tea, so that I could, be passionate about it and understand exactly where it came from, and that really helped me to do that. So, there's different teas that they have throughout the plantation, but specifically what parts of the leaf they pick and how they actually cut the tea makes a lot of difference. So, to pick the young leaves, the ones that are at the top, and there's generally the first 2 or 3 leaves from the top of the tips have the sweetest taste. They are the ones that, and so to pick those is what they're sort of concentrating on for the more premium teas, and so the pickers will generally concentrate on those. So that's something that we learned out there, and we were picking some of the tea and sort of tasting them, but also a bit like coffee, how you would grind your coffee, it's a similar thing with tea. So how you would cut that tea
how you cut the leaf?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, with coffee, if you have something that's ground fairly fine, it will come up a lot stronger, and it's the same with tea. So if you grind, if you cut the leaf,
so there's a bigger surface area.
Yeah,
so.
And especially we have a bit of an issue in this country. Like we like to add milk to everything, and this is a problem. So when we have a nice tea, you'll generally find with some of the quality teas, they'll have larger leaves and they'll be brewed in a pot. So you'd wait 5 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes before you serve that tea. Now, in this country, we want to dip a tea bag in, and it needs to be strong enough for a lot of people, and then they'll add milk on top of it. Now, if you've got a high-quality tea and the leaf is fairly big, they'll just say, well, your tea's weak. So they won't give it a chance. So we have to decide, so the majority of our tea drinkers would want to dip the tea bag in and, not leave it in for too long, but they still need that strength. Hence the English breakfast tea that we're sort of, known for. We have to make sure that the leaf is small enough, and they have a sort of cut BOPF, which is the orange Pico tea, and it needs to be fine enough so that we can extract the in a small amount of time, basically. So
really?
Yeah,
right.
There's a lot of different teas, and some need different times to brew, different infusions and different methods, but again, you have to sort of look at the demographic of what that tea is for, because some of ours are going into tea bags, so we have to decide how much we're going to put in there, how much volume of tea we're going to put in there. So we put slightly more in there to get the strength up, and but it's just sort of playing about with those, those details really matter to get the best taste. So we've tried to get something that is high quality, but it's got the right volume of tea to give it the strength as well.
Right.
So and we're still sort of trialing these parameters to get what's. I mean, that's the bit that excites me, messing about with it, and getting the best fit for how I'd like to drink it and how I perceive that a lot of our customers would, and we're constantly asking for feedback as well. So that's like I said, it's the bit that you can adjust that feedback loop.
But when you say that we in this country like to add milk to things, I got the feeling that was a slightly despairing comment.
Well, I think a lot of it was to do with tea that wasn't necessarily so nice, and people would kind of add milk, a bit like you might add sugar to things just to sort of change the taste a little bit. There's a lot of people who don't add milk to it, but
what
in
about
this
you?
country,
I get the feeling you don't.
No, you're wrong. I like milk in my tea. I think because I've been doing that for so long, it's become a habit for so many people. So I like a kind of nice amber colour, and I like this zestiness that you can get with the tea as well. So we buy over the tea in loose leaf form, and then some of that then gets bagged, and we use a cornstarch bag. So you've heard of all the plastics that can, you can get the microplastics, and people are not a fan of those, understandably. So we have a high quality cornstarch which doesn't have any plastic in it. So we try and keep everything, as good as we can. Very much in the UK, we are used to drinking strong tea, so you do need to keep the customers happy by having the strength, but we also want the quality. So
Right, what am I looking at, Simon?
So I've just brought you a nice Ceylon breakfast tea here.
Right.
So we've got here our bright, bold and full-bodied black Ceylon tea. Ceylon being the former name of Sri Lanka. So you can see here as we're looking at the leaf. The leaf is much bigger, and you can see that through. We're looking at a cornstarch bag, which you can see through here.
Yeah.
But they are much larger. But therefore, we've got a bit more volume in the bag, just so that we get that strength for those who brew quick. We don't have much patience in this country for tea, and then we'll say, oh, the tea's weak. so in a pot you would kind of give it a bit longer. A black tea can go in, with the green tea is more delicate, so you'd kind of have water in the 80s, but with a black tea you can go in at boiling with it.
Yes.
So you can extract.
Have you read George Orwell's essay on how to make a decent cup of tea?
Well, I like trial and error myself, and everyone has their own ritual.
He insists on very, very hot water.
Yeah, I do.
And milk in second.
And that does depend on the type of tea, but for me, it makes a lot of sense. Like coffee, if you have things at the right temperature to extract initially, then you can dilute afterwards. I always find the tea, if you leave it too long, you kind of end up with a hard water kind of scum on the top, which I don't like. So, but yeah, usually a good 3 minutes is a nice brew. So about 3 to 5 minutes for a brew, roughly around 3.
For a brew with
leaves
or with
I also
bag?
like to preheat the cup. So I preheat the cup, and
so
then I kind
really
of tip
hot.
the water out, and then I tip a new lot of water in, because it's taken the temperature down already into the china cup. So you've already reduced your 100-degree water to sort of probably into the 80s or 90s anyway. So by tipping it away, redoing it, it's going to stay hotter for longer.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll have a sip of Kandula Tea Company's Ceylon breakfast tea.
Yeah.
And this is without milk, and I must say it's really nice.
It?
Yeah.
It's good to know. then
I don't normally particularly care for tea without milk, but yeah, this is nice, and it is refreshing, isn't it?
It is. You can add some milk as well.
Yeah, just tip a bit in.
And it's got a nice kind of colour to it as well, as you can see.
Yeah, it looks like
nice sort of amber
cup
colour.
of tea. Yeah, well, to be honest, I preferred it without the milk.
Did you?
Yes,
yeah, interesting.
I'm very surprised.
Yeah. Well, it's probably not often that you do try a tea without the milk like that, so yeah.
Very rare. I hardly ever have tea without milk.
No.
You know, milk's normally on hand.
Well, you've got some now to play with, so you can... But it's often the way. It's with same with coffee, you know, if you have a decent quality coffee and, you know, it's nice to drink black because the natural flavours will come out and you're not having to add
into this, Simon. I'm going to have to get into this. I shouldn't have spent my life drinking coffee that's not as good as it could be.
Well, there you go. It's nice to have a new discovery.
But what about your customers? I bet most of your customers have milk in their coffee. I think like most people seem to have flat whites.
Well, again, you know, I always think that I always say drink it how you like, you know, if you want to put sugar in it. But always, you know, I think it's nice to try something without, and then you can always add it in, right? So if you always added sugar, maybe one day don't add sugar and see what it's like. If you need to add the sugar, then you add it in. But quite often people will do it from habit. So I like to encourage people to try without, but never to tell them how to drink it, you know?
Yeah.
But to challenge them maybe to try and do something differently is a good thing.
That's very good, very good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Simon. That's very interesting and very nice.
Thanks, Alan.
Now, in that conversation with Simon, when I was chatting with him afterwards, he said he put in his milk in second, unlike Andy Burnham, and me for that matter. Where do you stand on this, Matt?
I've got to stand with Andy on this. I always used to put the milk in last, but about 20 years ago I saw something on TV that said why you should put the milk in first, and it would almost guarantee you never to make a bitter tea. I've followed that advice ever since, and I think it's worked.
Well, writer George Orwell added it second, you'll be interested to know, and being George Orwell, he wrote about making tea in an essay entitled A Nice Cup of Tea, which he wrote for the London's Evening Standard newspaper in 1946. And let's just have a look a bit of what he says. He says, "When I look through my own recipe for the perfect cup of tea, I find no fewer than 11 outstanding points." 11, Matt, 11. I mean, a lot of it is to do with having it very hot, the water very hot, so which is similar to what Simon just said when he warms his cup, if you're using a tea bag, and then put the tea bag in, then the water, so it's still very, very hot. So several of his are to do with how to make sure that the water is really hot. He actually doesn't like tea bags. George Orwell doesn't like tea bags. This is his 9th point. I have shot over a few. One should pour the cream off the milk before using it for tea. Milk that's too creamy always gives tea a sickly taste. And here we go. 10thly, one should pour tea into the cup first. This is one of the most controversial points of all. Indeed, in every family in Britain, there are probably 2 schools of thought on the subject. The milk first school can bring forward some fairly strong arguments, but I maintain that my own argument is unanswerable. And this is that by putting the tea in first and then stirring as one pours, one can exactly regulate the amount of milk, whereas one is liable to put in too much milk if one does it the other way round. So, there you go. But the matter of when to add the milk, of course, is still of great interest. The Daily Telegraph said, oh gosh, I've lost it on my phone. Let me see if I can find it.
Shall I just say in the meantime some extra thoughts about Simon, because I agree with him about the warming the cup first. Something I found out fairly recently was bone china cups.
Yes.
You know, vegans and vegetarians will not approve of bone china cups because they're made from the bones of animals.
Right.
But they really do, is this the right word, induct the heat well. So if I make 2 cups of tea, one in a normal clay cup and one in a bone china mug, the bone china mug will stay hotter for longer, which is really good for people who take a long time drinking their tea.
Yes, right. Anyway, the Daily Telegraph says, Andy Burnham's efforts to unite the country as the new Prime Minister have already suffered a setback after he admitted he puts milk in first when making a cup of tea. And the Times of India, yes, the Times of India, this is an international story. They said, Britain's incoming Prime Minister Andy Burnham has sparked a fresh debate over one of the country's most cherished traditions after revealing that he puts his milk into the cup before pouring hot water while making tea, a habit he admits is likely to divide opinion. Speaking in a quick-fire interview with Politics UK, Burnham was asked about his tea-making preferences. I don't know why, Burnham says. I just have a feeling that putting the milk in first softens the tea bag a bit and makes it stronger. I might be wrong, and I know that will offend a lot of people, but there will be no legislation to ban it. So, it goes on. Actually, when Simon was talking about it, he was talking about making it with tea bags, not in the pot. So to put the milk in second, I think, under those circumstances makes a lot of sense, because the milk would cool the water down if you put it in first. And if you make it in a pot, despite what George Orwell says, I think that's a bit irrelevant.
I do agree, though. I hate having the filmy scum on top of the mug.
Oh, yes.
That's terrible.
Intolerable.
Yeah.
I'm free.
Now details of free food available in and around Cambridge, and the information about what's available and where to get it from comes from the Olio app, which exists so that people's or businesses' surplus food doesn't go to waste.
That's right, and today's look at Olio for Cambridge shows us that Ding, who lives on Pern Road, has a tub of mashed potato and a 4-pinter of skimmed milk to give away. Next up is Steph in Sackville Close, King's Hedges. She has lots of bready things available, including baguettes, batons, cobble rolls, Scotch rolls, baps, bagels and loaves, and a bag of pastries and pretzels too. Claire B on Gilbert Road has several loose rolls, loaves and muffins from the Co-op to offer. And finally, we've got Rita on Trumpington Road. Now, we've mentioned Rita before because she is offering some of her milk kefir culture so that you can make your own kefir. You can raise it, you can teach it, you can provide it with enough information to make up its own mind about religion and restrict its use of social media and even remember its parents' birthdays. So there you go. That's the free food appearing on the Olio app today.
And there's another app called Too Good To Go, which has unsold food from restaurants, cafes and shops, often at less than half price. And instead of specifying each unsold item, the surplus food is simply put into a magic bag, ready for you to take home, and that saves it being binned at the end of the day's trading.
OK, let's move on to our first news break now for the 25th of July 2026. We begin with Scots All Day in Mill Road because they have a Kids Eat Free offer, and that's throughout the summer holidays from 5 to 6 p.m. every evening and from 9 to 10 a.m. on the weekends. There's a free child's meal with each paying adult.
Mike Malloy, who ran Malloy's Butchery at Cambridge's Station Square and took over the butchers in Arbury Road, is back. He's to be found at Frank's Farm in Ellsworth, where, among other things, he has Wagyu, retired dairy beef, as well as a barbecue selection.
Limoncello on Mill Road is going to open a second branch. This one is going to be in St Ives.
Mangia e Bevi are opening a shop in Cambridge selling Italian produce that will include a huge range of produce: cured meat, dairy products, rice and pasta, sauces, condiments, flour, coffee, lots of other things. It has a coffee shop, and that is opening tomorrow at 3 o'clock at 152 Hills Road, over the bridge going out of the city where Al Pomodoro is.
Hidden by Pudini in Willingham has an Italian supper club on the 31st of July. The menu includes crab ravioli and summer porchetta, and dietary requirements can be catered for. Just let them know in advance. You can book your place via emailing them info@pudini.co.uk. And on the 13th of August, there's going to be a pasta night.
Finboys has some special events coming up. There's a collaboration with Cambridge wine merchants for an Albarino Day, with Finboys providing the oysters, which Albarino wine matches very nicely. It takes place at Cambridge wine merchants' Cherry Hinton Road branch on the 1st of August between 12 and 3 p.m. To book, email cherry@cambridgewine.com. On the 5th of August at Finboys itself in Mill Road, there's a summer Tuscany wine dinner, and on the 24th of August, a menu featuring beef and tuna called Black and Blue.
Frank's Farm has a special event coming up on the 22nd of August at 6:30 p.m. It's a Lebanese night, for which booking is going to be essential. The mains include a mixed grill with shish tawuk, lamb shish, chicken wing and kafta. Or there's a fish grill with sea bass, calamari, prawns and mussels. To book, email tables@franks.farm.
Looking ahead, on the 4th of October is the Hinabi Festival, and that brings Japanese street food, crafts and culture to Stories Field Centre in Eddington. There will be a timed entry system, though some walk-ins may be possible. For more details and to book, there's the Hinabi Festival's social media to look up.
And that's the news for now. We'll have some more later.
Felicity Cloak of the Guardian's Feast section wrote on Instagram the other day something to the effect that the fruit and vegetables in the shops looked so good that she wanted to buy everything she saw, and I must say I feel the same way. I've had some fantastic cherries and apricots from Chris's stall at Cambridge Market, and Early Rivers plums are around now too. In fact, Chris stopped selling apricots to make room for local plums round about now. Our own allotment has provided black currants, red currants, raspberries, and a shed load of Cambridge gauges is almost ripe. Freezer space is becoming sufficient only for the odd ice cube, and the fridge is filling up. The only solution is to eat it, or make something that will preserve it all. And actually there is another solution which Matt will give details of shortly. But here are two relevant features from recent years, one from Rosie Sykes on jams, and the other from Alex Rushmer on salads. Here's Rosie first.
With peaches, I often would put a couple of the peach leaves in if I was making peach jam. Peach and raspberry is a lovely jam combination. The peach leaves, I think you probably know, they smell of almonds as well. So by using the leaves, you get a lovely sort of bit of almondy flavour in there. Peach and rose is lovely as well. I was lucky enough to get some mulberries last year, which make an absolute wonderful jam. Just very simply mulberries. I don't think you should put anything else with them, really. Black currants make a lovely jam, and black currant leaves are really, really nice. They taste very lemony. But I've done black currant and mint is rather nice. Again, but with that, I did the big stem of mint while I was cooking it. And then I actually finely chopped some fresh mint and stirred it in just before I put it in the jars.
On the subject of sugar, weight for things like rhubarb, what about sweeter things like strawberries or raspberries or apricots? You'd use less sugar?
Yeah, I would, but I wouldn't go much below sort of 700 for a kilo, just because otherwise you're never going to get a set. You're just going to struggle to get any kind of a set, even with a jam sugar, unless you boil it until... one of my favourite jam stories, one must always have a jam story, mustn't they, was that my sister, my middle sister, was really into kind of health food and stuff. And we had a peach tree at the house that we all grew up in. And I remember every year we'd go out and see if there were any peaches, and there really very rarely were, sadly. But one year there were about 20 peaches or something like that, and she brought them in a bit early and she ripened on the windowsill, and she really looked after them. And then she said, I'm going to make jam with them. And she found some sort of Crank's very sort of natural cooking recipe to follow that required practically no sugar, but instead what it required was sort of, I don't know, about so many hours of boiling. And I can remember at the end, she produced half of a jar of this sort of brown, very tar-like substance. It was the peach jam from all these peaches that we'd all kind of looked at and thought, oh, I'd love to eat one of those. But no, we weren't allowed near them because they were going to make amazing jam, of which there was probably a teaspoon each of tar-like substance.
Oh, dear. And did the tar-like substance taste nice?
I don't think I remember. I think I was so cross that I couldn't taste anything, probably, knowing me. I was probably only about 10. So yes. Yeah, you have to get the balance right. And also the thing is, if you take the sugar down, it's not going to preserve it. So it's really just becomes a coulis.
Now, we should add that if you have a surplus of homegrown food, Cambridge Sustainable Food has a surplus fruit and veg drive. That's running from 3 dates here, the 27th to the 31st of July. Next one, the 24th to the 28th of August. And finally, the 14th to the 18th of September. In Camborne, you can take any surplus that you have to Hope CIC Community Food Project. That's in the Hub Community Centre in High Street on Monday, Wednesday or Friday between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. during those weeks. There's also a mobile food hub where you can drop off your produce, and it will be visiting Cottenham, Milton, Fulbourn, Linton, Orchard Park, Duxford and Northstowe next week. Days and times are posted on the Cambridge Sustainable Instagram bio link. Now, if you live in Cambridge, you can drop surplus fruit and veg off at the Cambridge Sustainable Foods Food Centre in Barnwell, or they can even come to you. There's a form for you to put your details on, again, all through their Instagram bio link, and if you need assistance harvesting, they can help with that too.
Yes, well, I think that's very good. Another must in summer is to use some of the fresh fruit and vegetables to make a salad, and who better to ask for advice on salads than Alex Rushmer of Vanderlyle in Mill Road. Here's an excerpt from a recording I made with him a couple of years ago, which you can still hear in full via the Flavour podcast of the 29th of June 2024.
But essentially what we do is we build up layers of flavour, and I think salad is one of those things that needs to have contrast, and it needs to be consistently interesting. And I think what makes a good salad is one that tastes slightly different every time you have a forkful of it. And usually we have two dressings on it, and then usually we start with those actually. We start with one of them and then we finish with another one. So we have a saffron mayonnaise base that we use as a sort of adhesive to attach all the leaves and different things to the dish. But essentially my building block, my philosophy when it comes to salad is that it has to be about contrast, and that means contrasts of temperature and texture and sweetness and acidity and richness. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's possibly why there are so many ingredients in there. So as well as the leaves, there are things that provide texture. So there's some raw vegetables, so we have raw turnips and radishes in there.
What, sliced up or grated?
Yeah, sliced very thinly, and we do little matchsticks of turnip which are salted, which just softens them ever so slightly, and then rinsed. That brings seasoning to the salad as well. Further texture we have in the form of hazelnuts through the dressing, so it's a toasted hazelnut vinaigrette dressing. And then for acidity and more seasoning, we have some fermented items. Pickles, I think, are really important. So acidity is crucial when you're making a salad. So we have pickled beetroot. But those are the important things to keep in mind when you're making a salad. So have those contrasts. So it needs to be well seasoned. So you need to add salt. But you have to remember that salt will pull moisture out of the leaves as well. So it will wilt the leaves. It will essentially make them less crispy and less crunchy and less fresh tasting. So when you're seasoning your salad, wait until the last possible moment. And then dressings are actually really easy. People think dressings are hard, and they're trying to make sort of emulsified vinaigrettes, and you need fat and acid essentially, and that can come from absolutely anywhere. So traditionally it would be olive oil and maybe white wine vinegar, but if you think about the number of things that bring fat and richness, it could be different oils obviously, but you could also use brown butter if you wanted to be really adventurous with it, cheese or hummus, things like that you can stir through. Feta is amazing in salad. So lots and lots of things can bring fat. And then acidity, as I said, vinegar would be traditional. There's loads of different types of vinegars, and the simplest salad dressing, really good olive oil, really good vinegar. Sometimes that's all you need. Pinch of salt, sometimes a pinch of sugar as well, just to help balance out that acidity and make the whole thing taste more interesting and a bit more extensive. I love playing around with it. So you have you're building up these layers of flavour.
And what sort of ratio, Alex, between the fat and the
so
acid?
Traditionally it's really easy to remember. You have 2 parts fat and 1 part acid. So as a broad ratio, that works really, really well. Always taste it as you're going along, and taste the dressing on itself. Dip a leaf into the dressing and see how it tastes.
Thanks to Alex Rushmer of Vanderlyle there.
And we can't leave the subject of seasonal fruit and vegetables without listening to Cambridgeshire food writer Laura Donoghue on the subject of apricots. Laura recorded an essay for Flavour on the subject in 2019 it was, and she was talking about a trip to Montpellier in France where she and her sister had brought some wonderful fresh apricots. Here's an extract.
I left France yearning to see the fruits growing again and vowed someday to go back and look for them. So imagine my astonishment when, quite by accident, I discovered one more recent summer right here in rural Cambridgeshire, a small family fruit farm that grows apricots virtually in my own backyard. I'd gone to Willingham, north of Cambridge City, on a search for the Manning family farm, where I'd been told I could find heritage variety plums. When I walked through the doors of the Bushel Box Farm shop, the unmistakable perfume of ripe apricots stopped me in my tracks. There they were in full, proud view. And yes, they were grown right there on the farm, along with the plums. I couldn't believe my eyes. I bought 6 varieties of plum that day, and almost every apricot they had on display, my conscience just stopping me from taking the lot so other people could have some too and spread the word. So I went back again, and a third time, and I made jam and tarts and my mom and dad's pie, and we ate them fresh every day for the few weeks of their season. Being able to taste an apricot where it's grown, when it's been allowed to ripen on the tree, is a rare thing anywhere and will spoil you for life. You'll forever know the difference and never again be content with pale impostors. Growers who give us this experience do an invaluable service in retaining and rehabilitating our appreciation of flavor and the collective taste memory we have as a culture that may, if we continue to value it, help us hang on to fruit that tastes like it should. They preserve old varieties despite the fact they don't produce bumper crops or are susceptible to frosts or disease, because they value them for their flavor, for the heritage, and their genetic diversity.
And thanks to Laura Donoghue. Nice to hear that she appreciates flavour, although I think she's talking about the taste. And freshly picked apricots can also be bought at the Heath Fruit Farm in Bluntisham, or from their stall at Ely. They hope to be there today, by the way. Their farm shop is open on Saturday mornings until 1 p.m, and during the week they have a kiosk outside where you can get punnets of apricots and plums, but it's very close to the last of the apricots, so you're going to need to move quickly.
Right, OK, on to more news, starting with market news. Girton Market is today, Saturday, and it runs till 3 p.m. Dry Drayton's Market is tomorrow, as is Haslingfield's Market, and it's their first birthday celebration tomorrow with a chance to win a homemade tapenade from La Bonne Popote, so well done to them. Also tomorrow is Gransden's Farmers Market. The next Histon Country Market is on the 31st of July. The next Orwell Pannier Market is the 1st of August. The next Farmers Market in Caxton is the 9th of August, and there's no Linton Market in August. And on the subject of markets, Cambridge's Daily Market has vacancies for a butcher's stall and a cheese stall.
Now, not a market, but similar, Flourish Farm Shop is selling imperfect tomatoes. They may have a blemish on the skin, for example, in reduced price crates. Flourish is in Hildisham.
News about the sale of the Derby stores in Newnham, which we featured recently. We hear that the sale is off, which will please a lot of people.
A quick visit to Congratulations Corner now, where we see everyone from Finn Boys in Mill Road. Jay Rayner's review of Margaret's, which we mentioned last time, also said this of Finn Boys.
Yes, earlier in the day, he says, because he went to Margaret's in the evening, earlier in the day I managed a couple of courses back at the varnished wood counter of Finn Boys, the lip to caudal Finn fish restaurant by chefs Richard Stokes and Jay Scrimshaw, and it was just as good as ever. I revisited their plump prawn toast made with a Japanese milk bread that has a luscious, shattering crunch when fried, topped with a fat, umami-boosted layer of minced shellfish. There were Orkney scallops the size of Labrador paws on crisp lozenges of rice in a dashi broth, and slices of silvery-skinned fish, which first had been aged and then torched. I had my first plate of asparagus of the day, because it's summer and it's Cambridge, plus a glass of English fizz. all was right with the world. Maybe every town should have a Finn Boys.
To anyone listening, that's exactly how Alan and I talk when we're outside the studio. We just prefer to kind of simplify it down for when we're in.
Yes.
And it's not often that Jay Rayner does a return visit to a restaurant, so he obviously rates Finn Boys, doesn't he?
Yes, I don't know if I've ever known him return. Anyway, coming up on Flavour, the closure of Rocker's Steakhouse. We've wine news, an update from social media, a look at today's Feast magazine and our job section.
That's after the break in about a minute's time. Don't go away.
Cambridge Radio. In 1960s Cambridge, the Rolling Stones performed at the Rex Ballroom, Chris Farlow was on stage at the Alley Club, and Helen Shapiro played live at the Regal Cinema. Every week, John Gannon takes you back to the swinging 60s with music and memories.
I certainly hope you're going to stick around and enjoy all these great sounds from a classic decade. Take you back to that wonderful time.
John Gannon's 60s Scene, online whenever you want, and Sunday afternoons at 2 on Cambridge Radio.
And welcome back to Flavour. Last week, Cambridge lost another independent eatery, the Rocker's Steakhouse, which had been in the city for many years. Matt caught up with co-owner and director George Bhangoo to chew the steak fat.
After 21 years of having the key, I guess the strangest thing for me will be walking past and not being able to go inside. You know, simple things like that. And I'll be like, oh, well, I can't because it's not mine anymore. And that's when it'll hit me.
This was Rocker's Steakhouse at the Cambridge Leisure Park.
The whole thing about it was music. Paradise City from Guns N' Roses. It always used to get people going, tapping their feet, nodding their heads. So that was one of the tracks that I'll always associate with Rockers.
This place, that's exactly what Cambridge needs. Not the run-of-the-mill chains that are unfortunately along here, but an independent with something completely different.
Did any famous people come through Rockers?
We did have Skid Row, actually.
No way!
Yeah, and they did pop in. And then also Public Enemy, Chuck D and Flavour Flav, they popped in.
Chuck D and
yeah, Flavour Flav with his big clock around his neck. I remember when it was Tom Jones was playing at the Junction, and I went over to the management. I was like, can you please get Tom to come over? And they were like, we think he wants to go home. I don't think he's going to come in. Anything from AC/DC.
Any era?
The Bon Scott stuff more. It will always take me back to being in Rockers.
Was it your first business?
Rockers Steakhouse wasn't actually my first business. I had a business before that, based where Rockers Steakhouse is on the Leisure Park.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a cocktail bar called Nusha, which ran until 2015, and then we opened Rockers on that site. We did have two Rockers Steakhouse in Cambridge. One was on Mill Road, which is where it originally opened, and then replaced Nusha with another Rockers Steakhouse. And sadly, we are closing it. So it's been 21 years for me in that unit.
Looking back on it, does it feel like you got things right from the beginning?
When we first did open Rockers, and it was on Mill Road, our very first branch, it was very, very difficult. And what really, really boosted us, and I think turned it around for us, because in the beginning it was very tough. I remember, there were weeks where we weren't sure if we were going to make it.
Oh.
And then we decided to come up with a gimmick, and the gimmick was a challenge, a burger challenge.
The man versus food kind of challenge.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if you'd eat this huge burger and plate of chips, that you could get the meal for free and a T-shirt and then a picture on a Hall of Fame. That really did generate massive interest in the place. So it became a talking point for people, and people were ringing us up all of a sudden saying, can we book this challenge? Tell us more about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we started to turn around and get more popular.
And it's proven popular ever since, because I saw a brief clip on your Instagram. There was a guy called Max who passed the challenge recently.
Yeah. There are competitive eaters who do go around doing these challenges all over the world, actually. And one of them did book with us and did call us and said, look, he had a whole team behind him. And he came in, and he was a very, very large chap. He finished the challenge in about 15 minutes.
Because you set the time up, is it half an hour?
Yeah, and very, very few people completed it. But this guy, he just tore through it. And then the funny thing was, after, he said, "Can I have a look at your dessert menu?"
We first started coming to Rockers when it was at Mill Road. Steaks were always really good, but they always did a really nice burger. The scissors are nice. There's always a nice menu of nice stuff that you can eat.
Any type of business that starts out, it'll take some time for people to get to know them, especially independents, because we don't have the marketing budgets that the big chains do.
Yeah.
So for us, it's kind of more of a word of mouth. It would have been great to have the marketing budget and be able to go on radio and advertise and, you know.
And I guess word of mouth was the primary driver back then, because we were just on the cusp of Twitter and Instagram wasn't even a thing then.
No. We didn't do much on social media actually at the time, and I think you're right. It never really was a thing back then when we first started. And now it's so key. People spend thousands and thousands on promoting through these social media channels now.
Yeah.
You'll see restaurants constantly putting out content on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, TikTok as well. All of the major chains have got massive social media presence now.
To be honest with you, I don't really listen to that much metal.
It is really, really difficult to stand out when everybody's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that's made it actually more tricky for independent restaurants when there's so much noise. If you look at any food business, it's so much content out there that you do get burnout. And that does make it more challenging for a smaller business to stand out in the crowd.
Yeah. Rockers Cocktails. The Purple Rain is dangerously refreshing. It tastes like lemonade that politely forgot to mention that it contains alcohol. And you are the cocktail guru of Rockers.
Well, yeah, I started out in the cocktail bar before Rockers, which was called Nusha. We were flair bartenders at the time, flair bartenders, so we used to do tricks, stuff like...
Oh, like in Cocktail?
Yeah, like in the movie Cocktail, yeah, exactly like that. That was one of the best things about having Rockers, it was being able to develop that menu. So you've got to have a passion, I think. Passion for food or drink. Mm-hmm. Mine was drinks and cocktails. My business partner was food, so we kind of together we had both sides of it, you know.
Yeah.
Coming up with different ideas, and obviously the name, I looked at it and I was like, well, we've got Prince, on the walls, and Purple Rain being such an iconic song. We thought we'd name a cocktail after him that we wouldn't get sued for naming it that.
Cocktail-wise, I've always been a Tom Collins fan, and they make a killer one here.
I was looking over some of the comments on TripAdvisor about Rockers. One person said it's always great to find a place that knows what serving a steak rare actually means.
So we try and go out of our way, really, to please the customers. And then we had more of a motivation to do that, being an independent, because it's our livelihood.
Yeah.
Glad to see that you've picked out that one, because that was what we were going for when we started.
Yeah.
The menu we tried to develop was burgers, steaks, fajitas and Tex-Mex cuisine. And the cocktails were, could we make some like rock-themed cocktails? So we made one called Smoke on the Water, which I'll always remember, which was my favourite cocktail.
What did that contain?
So that was a double shot of bourbon, and it had cinnamon actually in it. And we'd smoked the cinnamon, so it gave it smoky taste to it. And it had some Angostura bitters in it, and we put a touch, I think it was Frangelico actually, which worked really well, which is a hazelnut liqueur. That was a really nice cocktail, so I'll always remember that one. And food-wise, I think I'll always remember just like the burger challenge, because when it used to come out, it was really quite impressive, and everybody who was in the restaurant would pay attention when they saw it, because it was such an event. That will stick with me as well. I'll always remember that. And we always did pride ourselves on the steaks, and people always used to say, if you want a good steak, go down there.
Yeah, they did. That was one of the recurring comments, was always talking about the succulence of the steak.
Yeah.
I would always treat myself like once every 2 weeks, T-bone steak. It was a bit more pricey because it's a T-bone steak, but it was so good.
We talked about it when we first opened, but the Josper oven really did help with that, which is a charcoal-based oven. The uniqueness, that flavour that we got with the steak was really from there.
I remember you saying that, also talking about putting veg through the Hosper oven as well, because that would also infuse the meats.
Everything that you put in that oven used to come out really tasty, actually. It was
and fast as well, right?
Very quick, because it was very, very hot. I think we were getting it up to about 300 degrees.
Yeah.
Super quick. We could cook like a medium rare steak in about 2-3 minutes.
It's a sad loss to lose this place in Cambridge, because I've got no doubt it'll turn into another generic restaurant. and I believe that Cambridge will be less rich for it.
How would you feel if you were starting in 2026 running an independent food business in Cambridge?
The cost now is so significant that it makes it a lot more challenging, and it presents a huge barrier to entry in the market, because the cost of doing it now is probably a lot more than when we initially started.
Are we talking like energy costs, minimum wage, that sort of thing?
Everything, starting with a fit out. So if you buy a restaurant, you have to build it essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So you're building the kitchen, the floor, the seating arrangement and everything like that. The costs of those type of things are a hell of a lot more than they were when we started. So I think the challenge would be doing it now in today's climate. It's almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but the risk and the initial investment is a lot more than it was before. For food businesses, not to put anybody off if you're listening to this and you want to get into it, it's very expensive to set up a restaurant these days.
Because I'm aware that where you choose to set up in Cambridge, you're going to face different rates. Even recently, I was talking to a business that moved out of Mill Road because it was cheaper to set up the same business in Burley Street.
Yeah, it's the business rates are very, very high. Cambridge has always been quite an expensive location to be in, so the rent and the rates, they are significant. You asked before what were the differences between Mill Road and the Leisure Park. That is one of the major differences, is in the cost. And I guess that's one of the reasons why you don't tend to see many independents in the city centre, because the rates and the rent there are significantly higher.
People have had to prioritise, and unfortunately going out to eat is now, it's like a one in a month sort of situation, whereas before people could enjoy it a lot more frequently.
Location is very, very important. I think it's probably the most important thing for especially a food business.
There's only one leisure park in Cambridge.
It's a hub for people, and that does generate a lot of trade for the restaurants down there. You've got the cinema, you've got the junction, you've got the bowling alley, and then the restaurants do feed off of those.
Were you the only independent down there?
I think there was just us and one other. It's a place where you don't tend to find independents because of the costs. We were quite fortunate in the fact that we had the lease from already previously, from when it was a cocktail bar. But it is quite difficult when you're dealing with big complexes like that. The landlords tend to ask for a lot more.
Yeah.
And it is harder for an independent. So they prefer chains. I think if I was to go out and eat now, I will steer towards places like Mill Road. I do like to go to Al Kasbah and Bedouin. They're very good places. The noodle place down Mill Road, their food's really good. They always have a massive queue outside. I always try to support local. One of my favourite places at the moment would be Taj Tandoori as well.
On Cherry Hinton.
Yeah, I love that place. And they've got a family homely feel to their restaurant, which is kind of the vibe we were going for as well. So yeah, I like to support them as well. They're a great restaurant too. At the moment, I want to take a break, maybe come back to looking at opening another restaurant in the future. But it is a lot of work and a bit tough for independent restaurants, and hospitality in general really is tough, not just for independents.
Is there anything you'd like to say just finally for regular customers?
Yeah, I actually do. I would like to say a massive thank you to everybody who supported us over the years, from the bottom of my heart, for always choosing Rockers when you did. And it means a lot to us, it really does. So big thank you to everyone for that.
Nice. Thanks very much, George. It's been great catching up with you. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, just so sad that Rockers is going, but you seem so permanently optimistic.
Yeah, well, you have to be in this world, don't you? Because the alternative isn't great.
It's good that George has this keenness to open a restaurant in future. But like he was saying, it's tricky with the high rates, the development costs. There are even articles online you can check out on the BBC website and Reddit talking about the sale and redevelopment of the leisure park where Rockers Steakhouse was, to potentially be turned into more lab space. Though the plans do state that they're going to retain things like the junction and the cinema, but it's still changing what is essentially a leisure space into something else. And we've already seen that happen with the Grafton and the Beehive Centre, and we've heard and we've read about the treatment of the independents there that they received. And there's a lot of consternation currently as to whether there's even a need for all of this current and upcoming lab space, when so much of it appears to be lying empty at the moment. And why the need for it in the central part of the city and not out in the science parks? Because the central part it needs more shops, it needs more opportunities for independents like Rockers to make a living and create more jobs for locals in the city. Or is Cambridge really leaning into its title of being a city increasingly suited for chains and franchises? A Starbucks on every corner, a Wendy's on every street. There's Supercharge with Wine taking us into our wine news, and we're going to begin with Cambridge Wine Merchants because they have some new wines which have recently been given high praise by Jancis Robinson, Master of Wine. They are Domaine Gaida, which is a 2024 Pinot Noir, and also from the same year, Tête à Tête Terre Blanc.
The Three Horseshoes in Madingley has an evening coming up which celebrates Chapel Down wines. It's a guided wine tasting with a 4-course dinner designed to complement the wines. And the menu includes oysters and stone bass and takes place on the 30th of July.
On the 31st of July, Grape Britannia and the Traditional Punting Company have a wine and cheese tasting on the Cam, starting at the Jesus Green landing stage. Matt from Grape Britannia will be your tasting guide. It runs from 7 till 8:30 p.m, and you can book on the Traditional Punting Company's website, where there's loads more information.
The next tasting of Gutter and Stars wines are the 6th of August and the 27th of August at the winery in French's Road, beginning at 6:30 and lasting an hour.
Meanwhile, back at Cambridge Wine Merchants, their next Beginner's Guide to Wine is on the 21st of August at 8 p.m. in King's Parade, and it will provide a guide to a good bottle of wine. On the 29th of August at their Cherry Hinton Road branch, there is the next Saturday Supper Club with Crocon from the White Horse in Exning, who is going to be providing the food.
Finally, for the wine news, we hear of a new vineyard. It's at the Worsley Park Estate, which is also home to Bean Theory. It's where their roastery is. And they've just released their first wine grown solely from their own grapes, which is the Bacchus variety. The first 100 bottles are available to members of the estate's new wine club from this month, and details of how to join it are on the Worsley Estate's website. Right, on to a look at the newspaper supplement Feast, which comes with The Guardian every Saturday. Just a little bit on this today. The Filter, recommending chocolate ice cream. Almost all of the ones that Tom Hunt has tried get 4 stars, but the best bargain is Sainsbury's Taste the Difference Belgian chocolate ice cream. It just reminds me of the special ice cream Jack's Gelato did last week, because every day, if you don't know, Jack has a secret flavour. One of them last week was satay and fish skin, and unfortunately I missed it. I would love to have tasted that.
How do you think we describe the flavour of that?
I can't imagine. I mean, obviously there's sort of the peanutty of satay, but also fish skin, taste of fish.
Yeah.
Oh, just fantastic. I just love that sort of experimentation. Anyway, back to the papers. Felicity Cloak, her dish this week is the perfect homemade viennetta, which looks delicious, but rather a lot of trouble. And talking about lot of trouble, Richard Makin has 2 recipes for tofu. One of them has 25 ingredients: red curry fishless cakes with peanut slaw. I'm not a tofu lover, so I won't be doing that. Anyway, that's a quick look at the newspapers.
Yeah, I can't get my mind out of making your own viennetta. There couldn't be something more complicated, could there?
Well, it looks all right, actually.
Does it?
Yeah, I think it's doable.
I might challenge you to that.
Please don't.
Should we move on to some quick social media news?
Yeah.
Play the music. Because that is the music, signalling time for news from social media, and a reminder that you can find Flavour on Instagram. We are at FlavorCam, and you can contact us by email as well.
Right.
Flavour at Cambridge Radio.
Right, a quick rush through. Biscotti de Debra's last open bakery is next Saturday, the 1st of August. Also the last day for cake collections, because they're off on their summer holidays. The bakery is back on the 18th of August. The open bakery returns the 5th of September. Coming to Ely Markets today, a stall called Sporadic Fungi, which says the most incredible fresh gourmet mushrooms, plus a wonderful range of tasty goods made from their surplus harvest. Heath Fruit Farm, which is at the market in Ely today, has Sanctus Herbus and Opal Plums, plus golden gauges. Restaurant 22 on Tuesday welcomes Nye Timber, for a special dinner, and there are still a couple of tables available. The Handsome Prince on the 6th of August has factory brewing from Finland. And finally, save the date, there's the next Bermuda Triangle is on the 29th of Saturday, and tickets are on sale now. Let's leave it there because I think we're running out of time rather badly.
Okay. Moving swiftly onto our job section now, introduced by Green Onions, of course. We begin with Zizi in Bennett Street because they have a vacancy for a head chef and it's urgent.
A chef is needed at Scott's All Day in Mill Road.
Pint Shop in Pease Hill is looking for a sous chef, and Flourish are also looking for a new pack barn supervisor. That's in Hildesham. 3 full days and 2 mornings only. Full details are on the Flourish website.
Okay, can I just say something about Flourish?
Sure.
They posted, I think yesterday, saying how very difficult these drought conditions are. They're trying to keep their current produce going so it's sellable, but they're also planting for autumn and winter. A lot of things you'd be planting now or sowing now, like carrots, for example. And because of the dry conditions, they have already lost 60% of what they've been sowing for autumn and winter. So a really difficult situation there.
Yes,
and
yeah.
they're saying they really value people's custom, people who believe in what they're doing. So very difficult.
And on that comment, it brings us to the end of today's programme. We're here on alternate Saturdays at 12 noon, repeated on Mondays at 2 p.m, and available as a podcast from all the usual places. But if you cannot wait, just hit that on-demand button on the Cambridge Radio website.
Yeah, but that's all from us for today. After the news at 1 o'clock, it's Christine Schneider, and at 2 o'clock, Strummers and Dreamers. We'll be back on the 8th of August, and we'll have lots more food and drink news. We'll have jobs, we'll have features, but until then, from me and Matt, thanks for listening, and
goodbye.